Hi there. So this is my detailed analysis of the California draw odds for 2020. The application period's been open for a couple of weeks, but I always like to go through the draw, try and find some nuggets, figure out a strategy, figure out more information. I often answer quite a few questions on the internet, Facebook groups, etc., to help people out through the draw, or how they should approach it, or what they should look at. So hopefully this will be helpful to both new hunters and old hunters that have been putting in for a few years and think they might know everything, or know quite a bit about it. But I do see some what I'll call seasoned mistakes, meaning that there are people with very high point values that have made some mistakes, and I'll get into those in a bit. So my name's JR. I put in on hunting applications all throughout the West, so pretty familiar with a number of different application systems, whether it's a preference point system, a modified preference point system like we have in California, or more of a true preference point system like a state like Wyoming has, or some of the bonus point states like a Montana or a Nevada type system. And then obviously there's certainly those states that don't have a point system, such as New Mexico or Idaho. So hopefully you'll find this helpful. In my former life, I was an accountant, so I spent a lot of time in Excel spreadsheets, looking at numbers, trends, those types of things. And so hopefully some of this will be helpful to you. So that said, so just right off the top, especially if you guys are new hunters, I'll highlight a couple of quick things here for you, and especially even if you're if you've been an existing hunter for quite some time, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife has launched this R3 campaign. I was involved with it along with a number of other people, a lot of time, effort. People are trying to put stuff together to get together, to recruit, retain, and reactivate people. So if you're looking, there's opportunities to help find mentors here. There's opportunities for projects, different clinics that are going on. Obviously with COVID happening right now, it's a little bit different, but there are some cool opportunities. So it's something to pay attention to, for sure. If you're part of it, a lot of great organizations here, certainly help participate, help form this program. The department really is trying to get hunters more involved, and of course, hopefully get more and more people out in the field. So these are just some of the groups that were involved. I'm a member of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. I'm also a North American board member for Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, but I'm also a member of many of these organizations that are up here, and life members of many of them, because we all do different work, and we're all helping to help hunting and fishing in some way, shape, or form within California. So just quick drop on that if you guys haven't seen that yet. But one of the things I really want to get into first is that we're all familiar with the Big Game Digest, and the Digest does do a tremendous job of summarizing what our odds are. As you open it up and you can get through these pages, it'll talk about what's new, the bouncing from premium, the movement of tags from the premium, restricted, and non-premium. The unrestricted. So always important to take a look at that. Probably the big thing is that D6 has gone to an unrestricted tag for the first time since before the rimfire. It used to bounce between a premium and restricted, just due to demand. Even though there's 10,000 tags there, the quota would always fill, either at the tag draw deadline or sometime before August 2nd. So that's an important one to note. Good opportunity of hunting in D6. I suspect that a lot of people have this on there for a second tag, but it won't cost you any points if you accidentally drop it in on your first tag. First choice, first tag. Another thing, the junior thing changed this year. So it was a 5-year bill that was passed by Assembly Member Jim Frazier. out of Fairfield. He's done a number of great things for hunting and fishing over the years, but the only way they could basically get it passed through our legislature, and we won't go too much into that, was that it had a 5-year sunset. It did sunset. It wasn't able to get renewed, but there are a couple of bills this year to try and get that age bumped back up. So those are some of the big changes this year. But really, my focus of this is just really going to be on the draw and the draw statistics and the splits and how they work. So, and really in California, we have, what I'll say is we typically have 2 types of draws, right? You have to look at them independently. You have to look at the deer draw as well as the elk, pronghorn, and sheep draw, because of just the way that they're structured and simply the number of tags available for the applicants. So deer certainly has a lot more tags available. So, you can get into draws for often no points, or even just a few points, and you can be drawing every few years to get in. Some of our very high demand hunts are going to cost you close to maximum points, which would be 18 points this year, or close to it. Those would be the Goodale hunt, G3, Anderson Flat, G37, or even X5B to an extent. It's a pretty high demand tag, and it's just because there's just not a lot of tags available. So what the statistics do a good job here, and I apologize if this is sideways. If you've downloaded this electronically, you know that these pages come out sideways, but it talks about the highest point awarded in the preference drawing, and it talks about the lowest point awarded, but it doesn't tell you what goes on in between. And so what I want to encourage people to do is to pull up the document that's available on the California Department of Fish and Game website. You can literally Google California big game drawing statistics, and it will take you to this page. And what it does is it has a detailed summary of the draw odds, and these are both in PDF format, and unless if you know how to convert a PDF to Excel, it is difficult to read in PDF the way that it comes out, but if you can convert it, it makes it easier, or you can just enlarge it and work through it. But what I've done, I've pulled it out and created different spreadsheets. And basically, this is how the document's presented. It goes through, it talks just like you're looking at the deer draw. What's the hunt code, the hunt, what's the tag quota, what's the preference point tag quota, which for deer is 90% of deer tags available will go to the preference point, and then 10% will go to the random draw, and that's just the luck of the draw, and I'll talk about the total applicants. But what's really cool is that it layers in this whole detail here of where people are at with the various point levels in an application. So it can really help you understand of where's the cluster of applications. It does very, you could go and look at, I'll take an X zone X2 here, for example, and in the big game digest, you're going to pull this up and you're going to, and you're going to see that if you wanted to go in and you wanted to draw X2, it's going to tell you that the maximum points awarded, the max point holder was 16 last year. Well, that's all fine and well, but it doesn't tell you the distribution because there's 171 tags available to preference point draw. So these people paid really a premium, a lot more points than they absolutely needed to go into the draw. And if you see this adds up here, and if you add these applications up, and you get all the way down to the 8.5 point level, you'll see down here that the sum of that is I believe it's 127. Sorry, the way my screen recorder is, it's a little small. So it's 127 people at 8.5 tags, and that that's an averaged up 8.5 all the way up to 16. So there's still 127 off of 71, or 171 is 44 tags available at the next level down. Well, 44 tags available in the preference round for 143 people at this 8-point level, because it just works its way down as it carries down until it runs out of tags or runs out of applications in a given pool. So here there's 44 tags available, so 99 of these people will not draw a tag. So some of the folks that put in last year, and if they looked up the big game digest this year and they're like, well, that doesn't make any damn sense. I had 8 points last year. Why didn't I draw? Well, mostly because, of just like I'm saying here, is that roughly 2/3 of those people weren't going to draw because there was a lot of people in at this point level at 143. So you can approach this from kind of two, you can look at the year over year, our numbers are consistent, pretty consistent in each of the different each of the different hunts. Humans are creatures of habit, so yeah, there's some movement up and there's some movement down. Certainly that happens. And people jump off the sidelines from going point only, and they get into that tag that they want. But it helps kind of understand. But if you go in and you look at the lowest point awarded, and you add 1 point to that on average, from the Big Game Digest, you'll probably draw the tag. It's not to say it's a guarantee, but that's a good way to look at it. However, there is the opportunity to look at this from a detail perspective of how many people came in at these different point levels, and you could actually pull up 3 years of the draw statistics and figure out, is it about the same number every year? Was there 8 people? Was there 143 people roughly in at the 8-point level last year? I haven't, I've done some of that analysis. I'm not going to share that with you guys here, but you can go in and look at it and figure out what's the best opportunity to get a tag. So that's what's really cool about this document. That's why it's really insightful, because you can get an idea of where people are coming in at and what their application level is. X5B, I mentioned that earlier. So there was 2 people in at the maximum point level at 17 last year. So they were a guaranteed draw. There were 45 tags available. And so that basically dropped all the way down. If you had 14.5, you were a guaranteed draw. And then once you got into this 14-point level, that's when the allocations started. I think there was, if I'm just doing the math on here again, forgive me because the screen's small, 36. So looks like there were about 9 tags left for these 66 people in at the 14-point level. So that's a good way to approach this document. I will, however, highlight one thing. One of the things that I mentioned earlier is some of the mistakes that can often happen within the draw, and I see it, time and time again. So if you look at Goodale, everybody knows Goodale. There's well over 4,000 of us that apply for this tag annually. There was 297 max point holders last year. There were 23 applications in. So we're basically looking at north of 10 years just to get through this pool of max point holders. And that's assuming nobody comes in off the bench. But that's also assuming that people don't move away or pass away, or there's always going to be some attrition, but there's also going to be people coming in from the point only. But I do want to highlight this right here. So it's 16.5 points. There were 10 people. I'm making the assumption that this is 5 separate groups of 2 people. One of them has, and of those, each of those 2 people, same situation. One guy has 16, one guy has 17 points. They put in for an average of 16.5. The problem with this here is that, number one, the guy that had max points just took himself out of the preference draw and put himself into the random draw, which is damn near impossible. But even more so, another layer of layer that makes this near impossible to draw is that if you have an application of 2 people and there's only 2 people in the random quota, that means that your application needs to be pulled the first random quota tag available. Because if it's the second one, they're going to say there's 2 people on this application, you guys are out. And I'm certain that there are a number of people in here. For example, my comment here was that if you're looking at a random quota of 2, don't put in for a group application on any of your applications throughout this system. It doesn't make any sense, and you're giving yourself one more hurdle to try and get over, and all this, and quite frankly, make it damn near impossible for you to actually draw a tag. And I'm certain there's probably groups of 3 or 4 guys in here, and there's no way that you can actually draw. You've literally eliminated yourself from the draw. So something to be mindful of, something to look at. You can also, I'll show you some of those examples in the elk and pronghorn applications. But elk is the same deal. Some of you might be disappointed that I'm highlighting this to some of you. It's certainly to my detriment, because if you learn that and you put yourself in a better strategy, it's going to dilute my odds. And I'm not anywhere near a max point holder in California, so I'm in with a cast of thousands like most of you. So that's deer in a nutshell. Again, it shows these really cool point distributions. You can get a really good perspective of when you could have a good chance of drawing a tag. So I encourage you guys to go in and look at that. Back to Anderson Flat again, only 2 random tags, but there's certainly quite a few people in here at a split point value. So that means that they're averaging out somewhere. So I'd advise against that. So I'll jump over into the big 3 now: sheep, elk, pronghorn. Sheep is pretty simple. You can't do a group application, so there's no need to worry about that. I will say that this formula is screwed up, so I got to fix that real quick. So tag split 73-27. And hopefully that makes sense to you guys. That for our elk, sheep, and pronghorn, the tags is not, as opposed to the 90-10 allocation that happens for deer, it happens to be 75-25. However, if the tags are less than 4, it goes into a different. If there's only 1, it's a pure random tag. If it's 2 tags, it's a split 1 and 1. If it's 3 tags, it'll be 2 preference, 1 random. So your numbers can get a little bit skewed there. But in general, it's about a 73. This is a 73-27 split. Many of you know that we added some sheep hunts last year. I don't know what the ruling was this year. I think they were going to try and add a few more tags. I think they wanted to try and get to that 29 number for total tags. But we still got a ways to go here, and quite frankly, just to hit a point home, there's 1,700 tags of max point holders in the pool for 19 tags. So you can do the math on that. It makes it pretty challenging. That said, one of the things I wanted to highlight here is that especially if you are a max point holder, make sure that you're looking at your odds in detail. So certainly you could look at here and be like, well, there's 5 tags here. This is my best opportunity. Well, there's 5 tags here in zone 10. This is my best opportunity because there's the best chance to draw. But you have to look at the math of how many else are in that max point pool. The digest will tell you this, so you don't necessarily need this document, but it's important to note. So for example, zone 7, White Mountains, there was 5 tags, but there was 128 guys in for those 5 tags, giving you a 3.9% chance of drawing if you're a max point holder. Now, what might be deceiving is zone 8, there's only 1 preference point draw, but last year there were only 30 tags. So that's also a 3% draw. Now, if I remember right, zone 10 was new last year, or they added additional tags. Trying to pull this off the top of my head. So yeah, there was 5 tags in there, but also almost 600 people in for it. So your odds there was 0.84%. So it really was a true long shot to go in there. So if you are one of those guys in that max point pool, make sure you pay attention to those details, because your odds actually are significantly better by trying to get into one of these 2 tags. Now there might be a flood of people that I'm talking about it, but I don't think that many people see this. But the other random thing I'll highlight, I have no idea why 263 people put in for point only for sheep. Your odds are so thin, there's absolutely no reason that your name shouldn't be in the hat. But that said, I'm sure everybody else that's a max point holder appreciates you being over there to give them a chance to draw. And then going back into the random draw over here on the right hand side. Again, all of us for the rest of the random were less than 0.1% to try and draw. So flip a coin, give it a shot. Stranger things have happened and people have drawn tags. So moving on to elk. So similar document. This looks a lot like the deer. Goes through all the total applicants. Here I've got some highlights in there, and I'll talk about those in a second. So point split. 28% of our elk draw is out in the random, and 72% in the preference. 299 elk tags. Also, I'll mention that I'm not addressing any of the apprentice tags in here, so none of this math includes the apprentice. So just saying this is all for the adult tags. But going through here, every year there are opportunities. If you are a max point holder or even close to max points, you might want to take a serious look at this if you want to go hunting. For example, La Panza, antlerless hunt. There were no max point applicants last year for 5 tags. There was nobody at 16.5 and only 2 it's 16. So that means everybody down here to the 15-point level drew the Lipanza antlerless. Now, it comes down to a thing you've probably been putting into for a long time. If you want to go hunt elk, there are antlerless opportunities. Seek them out. Every year, there's always preference point tags available under some of the antlerless hunts that aren't drawn. Marble Mountain is another one. 8 tags. Again, so Marble Mountain drew all the way down to 13 and a half points last year for the 8. For those 8 preference point draws. So sometimes hunting elk is better than not hunting elk. Certainly if you've been in for a long time and you're pot committed, think about it. That if you really want that bull tag, but if you want to go out and hunt elk, maybe your time in California is limited or your time hunting is limited. Think about jumping on one of those tags to get in and go. One of the other things that I'll highlight, especially on the elk draw, because it kind of highlights, it's most clear is to some of the problems that go on in the elk draw. So, for example, here, some of these tags here. So, Grizzly Island, bull tag, couple different options. One random tag, and there's people in, and I'm going to highlight people at the 16 and a half point. So that's, again, I'm assuming that's one max point holder, one less than max point holder, put in as a group application. They effectively eliminated themselves from the draw. There's only one tag available. You can't draw as a group. You're out of the draw. So don't make that mistake. That's a critical error. If you want to hunt, and I always wonder if people are out there like, I have max points and I don't understand why I'm not drawn. Well, I mean, is a situation like this where you got in there with your buddy, and because you put a group application, you took yourself out of the max point pool, but you actually eliminated yourself because there aren't enough random tags available for you to draw. So, elk. And even pronghorn, it's great to put in for a group application, but I would advise it. If you want to draw, I would advise against it because it limits your opportunity to draw often, and you can get kicked out of a draw if you're pulling that that potential last tag available or whatever. So think about that, because we have so few available. In another state, it's a different situation, but in California, we have so few tags available. Don't make that mistake. I'm assuming this is 2 different people, one at 16, one at 17 last year, and they just took themselves out of the draw. That also brings up another point. If you have max points, if you have 18 points this year, and your buddy swears that he has max points too, trust but verify, right? Make him show you how many points he has, because I wouldn't be shocked to hear that some guy's like, oh yeah, I totally have max points, and they actually don't. They've been putting in for years and they forget, maybe they forgot a year and they're one off. Well, one off a max is, right, it's either we have a max point draw and we have everybody else. There's no tiers in here like in bonus points or more chances in a bonus point type draw. It's either you're in the max pool or you're out of the max pool. It's a pretty binary system. Again, all these highlighted red, same deal. You've got a group application in here and only one random tag. So you're all out. The other thing I'll highlight, especially with the dangers of, I'll call it the dangers of a group application. So here, Northwestern General Bull tag, right? If you were at the preference point, odds were almost 31% to draw that tag. And here's a group, again, I'm assuming, a guy with 17 and one guy with 16 last year, put in for the group tag, and the guy with max points went from 30 to 0.24 and almost eliminated himself. Throw on the additional curveball is that there may not be enough tags available for you to draw if you draw on the wrong cue. It's just not a good opportunity. I'm all about hunting with friends. I took 6 guys up to Montana last year for elk hunting. I get it, but at the same time, like, I would much rather go on an epic elk hunt in California simply because their tags are so hard to get while not carrying a rifle and my buddy having a rifle than I would. I'd not hunt all day long or not carry a rifle all day long, just to be able to go and hunt. One more example, Marble Mountain last year. And this is probably some of the worst. So again, you have another average tag here for a max and one less than max. The max pool, 75% chance of drawing last year. By averaging them out and taking yourself out of that max point pool, 0.4% to try and draw that tag. So think about that in your strategy. I mean, like I said, it's better to elk hunt than not elk hunt, and it'd be cool if you had 2 elk tags. But at the same time, if many of you have hunted elk, you know that once you get an elk down, you can pretty much commit, unless it's sitting next to the road, you can commit the entire next day to packing it out probably. Unless you got an easy retrieval, but generally elk tend to not do that so well. So think about that when you guys are putting in. And then over to pronghorn. Pronghorn adds up a little bit different, simply because we have just a few tags, a few hunts, but we have a lot of tags within those zones. So again, there's good opportunity. With respect to pronghorn, the opportunity for the max point holders is going to come with archery. And that makes it tough. Archery in big flat open country over pronghorn is not an easy hunt, but it is a hunt. So think about that as you're putting in, but you look at some of these numbers. So Lassen period 1, 187 people in for 27 tags, 99 people in for 34 tags. So some of those odds are bumping up, likely tables. The period 2 hunts are always going to be better odds if you're a max point holder. So think about that. You're going to have a much better chance. Granted, the animals might be a little bit more spooky, might have jumped around a little bit more, but those are your opportunities to look at. And then archery, there is chances to draw if you're a max point holder for an archery tag. And again, we know that's tough, but there is opportunity there. For example, likely tables right here. There's only 2 applications in here for 12 tags last year. So if you even averaged out to 16 points, you could still try and draw this. So here's an opportunity where your group application could work to your advantage if you can round yourself up just a little bit. So think about that when you guys put in. I hate to see it eliminate yourself from the draw entirely, but it certainly does happen. It happens every year. I see it. So pay attention to those numbers, but also look at some of these distributions and find those opportunities and think about, if you want to go hunt elk, how are you going to hunt elk? Or if you want to hunt pronghorn, how are you going to hunt pronghorn? Because, especially if you're close to max, you have that opportunity. If you're not, you just got to do the big math in it for the random odds. And as you go through here on elk, they're often a fraction of a point. Sometimes they bounce up into, the low single digit percentages, but take a look at them. Make sure you're paying attention to your group applications. If there's not enough random tags, you're not going to draw. So think about that. Make sure you're taking that into account. And again, I'm potentially shooting myself in the foot a little bit, but I want to encourage people to get out and hunting and get out and get after these animals if they can, especially some of you guys have been putting in for a long, long time. Identify that strategy to best get you that tag. Maybe it's only a year or 2 or maybe 3 years out as opposed to another 4, 5, 6, or 7. Everybody wants that Grizzly Island bull tag. But we know that the max point holders flood to that, and it makes it real tough to get. Same thing, East Park Reservoir, 1 tag for 139 apps. Makes it really tough. So hopefully you guys found something useful in this. Think about the different approach. Hopefully that excuse me, if you haven't looked at this document before, I encourage you to look at it. It can help your strategy. It's a more detailed analysis, and you can start to figure some of this stuff out. The only other strategy thing or comment that I'll put in on this year for you to think about is think about the land management agency of the area that you want to hunt. And I will highlight Fort Hunter Liggett here. With COVID going on, people have been talking, are they going to close hunting? Are they going to do this? I don't think so. And I think I could almost say unequivocally, no, they won't. However, there are some wild cards. So the changes that we've seen in fishing Yes, CDFW did close the Eastern Sierra simply because of fish miss, but the other closures that are happening are because of the management agency, and that's not CDFW. That's typically the Army Corps of Engineers. That's an irrigation district, county park, city park, and the Army Corps of Engineers, I think, in the case of Lake Sonoma. So there hasn't been any hunting closures at all this spring. No turkey closures, no pig, nothing else. However, some of the other land management agencies have closed it. And so I'll highlight Fort Hunter Liggett simply because there could be, I could see them being Department of Defense and an active military base. I could see them closing access. I don't think they did this spring. I didn't recall hearing it. If they did, let others know. But that would be my one guess, is that they could potentially close access simply because they're a Department of Defense place. So I would look towards national forest-based hunts. The East Park Reservoir could be dicey. I don't know, but those are definitely some of the things that you want to think about. National forests were open, certainly developed campsites were closed, same thing with BLM. So be prepared to maybe go dispersed camping as opposed to a campsite. So that'll be a little bit of a shift, but hopefully as we're all hunters that we all know how to do dispersed camping. So think about that in your strategy. I don't think it'll be a huge factor, but you might want to look at this and look at it both ways. Maybe people steer away from Fort Hunter Liggett because of that concern. So it could be a damn good opportunity to maybe get a tag, or not, right? Maybe it just, people do end up drawing and not getting it. So, you always have to think about that. You never know how people are going to look at this and react or and make adjustments to it. I definitely think that there's going to be a lot of adjustments in our application system this year. I'm waiting on Idaho Big 3 results. I'm in for a moose tag in Idaho. I'm curious to see if non-residents put in, because Idaho did close some spring hunting, but not fall, but they did close some spring. So was that a deterrent? A lot of things changing in the world. So, but anywhere, if you find this video, if it's out on the Facebook group or anywhere else, if I made any, if I'm wrong anywhere, please correct me. So people are getting good information. I'm really big on that. I like people to have accurate information, before they form an opinion on it. So if I'm wrong, let me know. If you got any questions, anything that I didn't cover that you want to know, let me know. I'll try and answer it. So like I said, if I post this in some of the Facebook hunting groups and you see it, ask questions. I'll try to do my best to answer it, or maybe other people can chime in. But want everybody to have the best opportunity if they can, getting into the draw. And get out hunting this fall. We all know that we need it with all the stuff going on, and hopefully you guys are looking forward to those opportunities coming up, and hope to see you online somewhere, or hopefully out in the field. So happy hunting and good luck on application season.